So I'm playing Batman constantly. This game is the shit.
No glitches for you?
No. Well, it's glitched a couple times, but not like because of like the PC problems or whatever. It was like I did like a Riddler challenge, and it was like a race course. You have to drive in like the Batmobile or whatever. And when I was done, I couldn't leave. Like the door wouldn't open for me to like get the hell out of there. So I'm just like running around trying to figure out how to get out. I'm like, what the hell? So like I looked it up online, and someone was like, oh, I just restarted the game and it worked. So I'm like, okay.
That's
like, it was just, yeah, it was pretty stupid.
Did you try saying shields open?
You know, if I had a Kinect, it would probably take voice commands, but yeah, I don't have that because I wanted to buy the cheaper version.
Fine.
Cheaper version as in $350 instead of $450, so like whatever.
Yeah, all right.
Cool stuff.
Speaking of shields open, when are they going to make a game like that? You know, that level of quality and all that good stuff for the, you know, the Michael Keaton movies.
Yeah, I know, right? That would be kind of cool if they like. Well, this game is like the last of like the trilogy that studio is doing. So like, who knows what they'll do after that? But
right.
it kind of stinks because like this series of Batman is like one of my favorite stories of Batman because it gets into that like, you know, it's not like I mean, you know, like we talked about this before. You know, there's the Nolan Batman, there's like the Tim Burton, and there's like unfortunately like the Joel Schumacher. And then there's like the Batman in the comics and like his genesis there, and
right.
you know there's the Adam West Batman. So there's all these weird different ways of looking at Batman. But I like the Batman in these games because it gets into like the psychological side of him, you know, being Batman. And as I was telling you before, in the second game, the Joker dies, but in this game, he's like having hallucinations of like the Joker. Even though he's dead, like in certain random parts of the game, all of a sudden the Joker's sitting there. He's like, you know, I tell you, Bats, and he starts talking to him, and you don't like respond to him, but he's sitting there blabbing. So it's kind of weird because you're like, oh, the Joker's dead, so now he's hallucinating him alive. So he's part of like his persona, you know, and it's like really weird. Batman. So I mean, that's kind of like one of my favorite ones, just like the psychological, you know, he scares people kind of thing, and you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably pretty similar to the Chris Nolan approach, right?
Yeah. Well, this game it's like really, really close because like because you play the Batmobile, like you can actually drive it in this game, and it looks a lot like the Tumbler from the movies. And of course, Lucius Fox is in it, and he kind of looks like Morgan Freeman, you know. So it's like, yeah, it kind of does pull off of that. But like this game, it has Robin and Nightwing and like, you know, his sidekicks and stuff like that. But like they don't, you know, play together. I guess like it's really weird.
You don't get to be them at all?
Well, I haven't gotten like he's been in the game at points. Has been talking to Robin on his communicator, but Nightwing shows up because you know Nightwing is Dick Grayson.
Right.
Like he's the original Robin, went off to be Nightwing and whatever. He shows up. He's been tracking Penguin from the town that he's like in charge of. You know that whatever Bloodgood or something like that, or Bloodhaven or something. That's like where he lives and fights crime. Anyway, he shows up and. Like the Penguin's got arms shipments that he's bringing in, and you have to like go find them, and then you go to interrogate Penguin, but he's got like 20 thugs, so they hold Batman down, but Nightwing like shoots in and like you fight all these thugs together. So like as you're Batman, you're like fighting, and then you could do like a dual team takedown, and you hit the button, and then you like Batman will like kick the guy and throw him up in the air, and like Nightwing will like come up and like punch him down, and then you're Nightwing, so you're fighting as Nightwing, and then you do the dual takedown. You do something else weird, then you switch back to Batman, and you do this actually with Catwoman too, and I think you do it with Robin eventually, but I haven't gotten to that point in the game yet where he's
right.
Cause I mean, I've been playing it like every night for like a week and a half, but like I've only been playing it like an hour or two, and I'm doing all these like side quests, so it's like really hard to get the story going, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't want it to be over with, so I'm kind of stalling, you know. But excuse me, jeez, ate some food just like you were doing. Speaking of video game nerd stuff, I keep watching those trailers for that Battlefront Star Wars game.
Yeah.
Looks pretty sweet, but I guess like you don't really do like there's no story involved. It's just multiplayer battles, so it's kind of like But because like like I say the first two, you actually do like kind of like a campaign, but this one you don't. So
yeah, I don't know. That's immediately frustrating for a person like me who's not quote unquote a gamer, but really wants awesome, you know, video games based on in entertainment properties I love.
Yeah.
So you see
Yeah.
a trailer that looks like the ones from that. It's like, mind blowing how good it looks. But you can't actually do any of the awesome stuff that you've always wanted a Star Wars game to do for you. So back
Yeah.
to square one kind of for me.
Well, Star Wars games have been weird because like they've always had to be like one aspect of what you could do. Like you're only flying like an X-wing or something,
Right.
and it's like a space combat, or you're a Jedi, but it's only an RPG game, so there's not a lot of like extra stuff going on. You're just walking around talking to people, and then you hit X and finish your quest. You know what I mean? And then
Right.
like they kind of like tried to in certain spot like that Obi-Wan game that we played on Xbox. That was kind of cool because like it was like a run around doing missions, and you actually controlled like a Jedi, but it just wasn't like
That's what I want.
yeah, it wasn't like fanfare. But yeah, this one, like the one side of me is gonna like it because it's Star Wars. It's like it's like a massive shooter game. But yeah, there's no missions, and like you just fight the battles that they did,
Right.
one side or the other. So that's kind of weird, but it does look pretty good. They said that one of the theories is that planet Jakku, like we talked about, like I guess they on some teaser trailer they kind of like maybe hinted that it's really Tatooine, and they're just saying that to because you know how J.J. Abrams is about like misdirecting people. They like he when Star Trek 2 came out, he insisted that Benedict Cumberbatch wasn't Khan, and they turned out to be Khan. So it's like he just says that stuff. So who knows? Because like they were showing because you can do the Battle of Jakku like a week before it's released if you pre-order the game, and they were showing some scenes from it, and it's got two suns, like Tatooine does, and you're just like, wait a minute, that's Jakku or whatever you call it. Is it really Tatooine? You're trying to pull one on us, buddy.
How
And like
shitty,
you said, yeah.
I'd say how shitty would it be if it actually wasn't Tatooine and
I know, right?
like how lazy would that be?
Well, you mentioned that too. You're like, we can't have another main big world that's a desert planet. It's like, yeah, we get it. There's probably more than one, but
Right.
it's just dumb. It's got to be Tatooine. It's
Yeah.
like a junkyard. So who knows? Yeah. Well, Comic Con's next week, and they're gonna have a Star Wars panel, so hopefully they'll have another trailer and get a little more insight on this. But
Right.
who knows? That's probably gonna be it though for trailers. I don't think they're gonna do very many more. So that means we get this trailer, and then probably have to wait 5 months for the movie to come out. So wait, August, September, October, November. So yeah, like 5 months. I counted on my fingers. So what's going on?
It is the 4th of July, and I am single, and everybody I know is working, including me. So I sit alone in my apartment, counting the hours until it's time to go in. Well, I have the weekend off technically from my restaurant because it's pretty much a ghost town. But if I had to pick up some hours at the old place because that would have left me with 24 hours for the week, which after all is said and done, is maybe about $200.
Yeah.
And I got to pay rent. $100 a week basically is the arrangement, so that would have been half of that. So I'd have been having $100 for this week at the age of 33.
That's not gonna cut it.
So I'm gonna hopefully be able to con them into using what I'm doing today as paying my rent, so I can keep all 200 of my bucks.
It's not bad. Well, it's a holiday. You should get paid like holiday pay. Oh wait, we're not talking about the. Well, it's weird because I had yesterday off, but I was in kind of in the same boat. Like I wanted some hours, so I went in for like 4 hours to work yesterday, and that's like $100 right there, my time and a half, just for 4 hours. So that's not bad. But it's just gonna go to like babysitting, rent, our electric bill, crap like that. So it's just whatever. It's like I work and then I have nothing to show for it. So
Yep.
good times. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, what do you like? What's your opinion on fireworks? Like, do you like going to watch fireworks or?
Not enough to do it every year. Well, I guess I can't say that because in Cortland they do the pretty big fireworks thing for New Year's.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, that's cool, but for that I don't have to leave my house, so whatever. It's kind of a bonus.
Yeah.
I'm not such a fan of like the do-it-yourself fireworks, I guess. I mean, it's fun sometimes. Like, it's fun when you're a kid, mostly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know if I do see fireworks. It's weird. It's kind of a weird paradox. I have a love-hate relationship with fireworks because I don't know, for some reason, like everybody I know always wants to go and stand underneath, like get as fucking close as possible to this shit, and I just don't. Like, number one, I think they look better and you're able to see the whole thing better from farther away.
Yeah.
And number two, like, I don't know what it is, but loud concussive noises like that, I just can't like deal with it. So I do not like being close to them. But I think it also comes back to like when I was like 3 or 4, my mom took me to Little York, the lake that they do those fireworks at, and I actually got hit with a piece of one that was still like a glowing ember. So I don't know. I don't know if that's like some early childhood trauma factoring in there, but
Probably.
I guess they're pretty.
They're pretty. I actually hate fireworks. I don't know. I think it's just because like I feel like that if you've seen fireworks once, like you've really seen fireworks, and I guess like, well, I mean, I say that because we went and saw some fireworks last weekend because they had some kind of like thing in the park, in like a town called Scotia, like right down the road,
right.
and they did some fireworks there. Of course it was in Freedom Park. I'm just like,
wait, is that's actually named that all year round, not just for this time of year?
Yeah, it's all year round, so it's perfect this time of year for that place. But then other than that, you're just like, this is kind of lame. But it was kind of a fiasco because like there were thousands of people there, and we sat in traffic for probably like 30 minutes while they let people walk through the street.
Yeah, the traffic.
Even though there were cops there, they like at one point let a few cars go by, and then they just stopped traffic altogether, so like the hordes of people could walk by. I'm like, how about you let some of the hordes walk by, stop them, let some cars go by, you know what I mean? But and then like people were getting frustrated, so some guy was like beeping his horn. So like the cops like, are you beeping your horn? Who's beeping their horn? Like he's some kind of jackass, But I mean like just so we saw. I know like he was. I didn't even know what to say. Like we were like just kind of like, oh my god.
You better start shooting.
I know, that's what I was gonna say. Like, get your gun out. I'm gonna shoot him. Well, it was like, it was funny. Like my wife and I were talking about that inmate that got caught, and I guess he got shot in the head 3 times. And they were like, why did? And my wife was like, why did they have to shoot him like 3 times in the head? And I'm like, because they're cops and they want to use their gun and shoot people with it. Like, what else is there?
Oh, this was their chance. This was their blank check.
I know. They're like, hell yeah, if we shoot these guys, we're good. Bam, 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 bam. Right in the head 3 times. It was probably like 3 different guys shooting him in the head at the same time. They were like, let's shoot him. Anyway, yeah, we can talk about that after I'm done with my fireworks spiel. But no, like we went to that last weekend, and of course, we're going to try to go to some fireworks tonight or whatever. But like, other people that aren't me really like fireworks, and I'm just like, I don't fucking get it sometimes. I'm like, I've seen fireworks like, so many times, and it's not just like even you said like, they'll do fireworks on New Year's Eve now. It's not like it's just the 4th of July thing anymore. It's like random time in the summer, some places having fireworks. Like why? Like you go to a baseball game in August, they're like, oh, fireworks after the game this weekend, and you're like, why? Like I don't care. Like it just fireworks are just like so to me. I'm just like I'm done with them. Like I don't want to see them anymore. And I kind of liked them, when I was a kid, but I like to be far away too because I didn't like the loud noises.
Yeah.
I mean, being right under where they're shooting them off too is not exactly the most safe thing to do either. Like, what if those things like blow up or fall over? It shoots it right at you. You're dead. It's like they're pretty dangerous. And I'm not going to be like one of those old men like, oh, I don't play with fireworks. They're dangerous. Because as you know, we shot bottle rockets and stuff like that, but I wouldn't really count that as fireworks. And then all of a sudden, they've made certain kinds of fireworks legal in the state, so it's like all of a sudden it's like porn for people.
Yeah,
they're like there's tents set up with fireworks.
They're
people
fucking
are like,
everywhere.
oh, let's buy fireworks. Yeah, it's crazy. Like
I just went to CVS to get some cat food, and literally 20 minutes ago, and fucking the very first thing you see when you walk in the door, they've like set up this huge wall of fucking fireworks, and like right in the makeup section, like right in front of all the makeup shelves. So it's like it's almost like you walk into it when you fucking go in the store.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh my god, oh, you can tell something just got legalized. Jesus Christ.
And like it's funny because even like Price Chopper grocery stores have a huge like section for fireworks, and it's like okay, Hannaford has them. It's like what? And they're not even like the really good ones that you shoot up in the, you know what I mean? I guess like they're only certain kinds are legal now or something. I don't even know. I don't care because I hate fireworks, so whatever. But it's just like this huge obsession all of a sudden.
Well, I think it's just I think it's only the ground-based ones or whatever, or they can't like go up past a certain point supposedly.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I guess initially didn't make sense to me. I didn't look into it, but I'm wondering if I just kind of pulled this out of my ass. I'm wondering if it has something to do with New York City. Like, I don't know. I guess can you imagine like the citizens there just shooting, airborne fireworks in every fucking street corner and rooftop and shit?
Yeah, I could see that. That'd be hilarious. It'd cause panic.
Yeah.
Mass chaos in the streets right there.
Well, it would provide the perfect cover for the next 4th of July terrorist attack.
Right? Is that terrorist? Like, no, it's that guy in that apartment over there. Oh, okay.
What about that
Loud
one?
noise.
What about that one?
Terrorist? Oh, I'm freaking out. Yeah, here's the idea. Move out of New York City then if you don't like it.
I guess the only time I'm really truly in favor of fireworks or related products is like using them on stage or something for like a musical performance or whatever. Like, I don't know. I think that's cool.
Yeah, well, because if they're not, when they do it for like a musical performance, it's not like a sustained like 30-minute spectacle of fireworks going off, and it's like it's like a couple here and there, like oh wow, it was loud and it scared me. Yeah, music. That's cool, but like, yeah, I don't know. I just can't stand the sitting around and watching the fireworks again. Yeah. After tonight, I'm drawing the line. Like if anybody wants to go see fireworks, you're going without me because I don't care anymore. Like I don't want to watch damn fireworks. Like just. So you're gonna same thing every time. Huh?
You're going to be fireworks is like you're Homer Simpson refusing to go to church on Sunday.
Basically, yeah. Like if you want to go, be my guest. I am not going. And it sucks too because in the summertime, they don't do the fireworks till it gets dark out, and it gets dark at like 9 o'clock. So like already it's like 9 o'clock, and you're waiting for fireworks. You're just like, why couldn't they've done this like 2 hours ago?
Right.
But do the fireworks in the wintertime when it's dark at 5 o'clock. You do the freaking fireworks, you get it over with, you go home and go about your day.
Right.
By the time we get back from the fireworks, like everybody's gonna be tired and no one's gonna want to do anything, and it's just like whatever. But
yeah, that's a day ender, not an activity that you do things after.
Yeah, definitely. And it's disgustingly hot in the summertime too. So not only am I sitting out there sweating my ass off, waiting for something to see that I don't even want to see. That's like just like it's piling on, man. It's just fucking fireworks. Like it's kind of weird how like that's one of those things that's still it's not. It has never really been like a trend. Like there's always been fireworks, and it's not like all of a sudden people just don't want to see fireworks anymore. It's really weird.
Yeah, and I guess it plays into the whole fascination with fire that humans have built in or whatever.
Yeah, explosions.
It never gets old.
No, definitely not. So anyway, that was my topic for today because I was kind of a little annoyed about it. But we were going to go to a parade, but it was raining, so at least we're like, yeah, we're not going to sit out in the rain and watch a parade. That's our thing too. Parades really haven't changed that much either. Like you got your staples in parades. You have like the fire trucks, like from every different fire station. So it's like fire trucks and something else, and 5 minutes later, fire trucks again, and they're like blaring their horns, scaring the crap out of everybody. That's always like a staple.
Fire trucks, marching band, fire trucks, another county's marching band, fire trucks.
So it's like, oh, it's the local State Farm agent holding a banner, yay! And then it's like fire trucks, and it's like, oh, there's the Corvette Club, driving their cars really slow. Man, if I was in a Corvette club and they want to do a parade, I'd be like, man, that sucks because like I want to drive my Corvette fast, not like 3 miles an hour. Right. Whatever. But I mentioned that we went to a Flag Day. That's the other thing too. Like growing up in Cortland, we had the Dairy Parade. Here, where I live now, the Flag Day parade is huge, and it's usually some random time during the week, which sucks. If you want to go to it, because like people work, but whatever. But yeah, they have a 4th of July parade and whatever. But yeah, it's just like the same thing. Like it's never different.
Well, I hate that. Like you said, people work or whatever, but I feel like people work until they don't. Like all of a sudden, whenever anything happens, you just look around and can't help but like marvel at how nobody seems to have a job or anything else to do.
Yep.
I don't know. Like I rarely find myself. I mean, my weekend is in the week, but like I don't usually get out like and drive around or whatever. during that time, but on the rare days I do, or it's like Tuesday at like I don't know 1:30 in the afternoon, maybe 2. Like the roads are fucking packed, and that's around here.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just an indication of how truly overpopulated everything is. But also, I get not everybody has like the solid noon lunch break, but I feel like most of them do. But the roads are just fucking jammed, like
Yeah.
throughout the day, and it just like, how is this happening? Nobody's at work. Like, isn't there at all a clear time anymore? I don't know.
Well, I want to know what jobs people have where they can leave their job to
Yeah,
go out to lunch. Like my lunch is 30 minutes.
yeah,
Like if
exactly.
I have to leave my work to get food, I basically drive the 2-3 minutes down the road to McDonald's, go through the drive-through, get it, go back. I have like 10 minutes to eat when I get
Yeah,
home, or get back to work now. But yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that about people not working because being involved in the public school system now, uh, it's like all these parents just have this disposable time that they can volunteer
right.
and do all this shit at the kids' schools. And it's like, we both work. So we're like the asshole parents that never do stuff involved in the school, because we can't. We don't have like this pile of free time where it's like, oh yeah, I can go in and I can volunteer for the Halloween party and I'll get things together, and it's like, no, I don't have any time for that. And it's like,
Right.
and I don't know if, I mean, a lot of people in this area kind of have a lot of money, so I kind of feel like one person works and one person stays home or something, and that's fine. I mean, I don't have any problem with that, but it's like I feel it just feels crappy, when you can't be involved in things. When like all these other parents, like the wonder parents, and it's like they get to know the teachers, so you kind of feel like they get a little bit of an unfair advantage with their kids too, because like all these
Yeah.
teachers know their parents, and it's like we, come in and it's like we don't even know these people. It's just really weird, and like I don't. It's the same thing. Like you're, going out and tell these people on a lot. People just don't. I mean, you might be right. It might be they have like a weird job where it's not a typical 9 to 5 day or something like that. But it's really annoying, that
Well, that's the thing. Like,
I can't do that.
how many people can there be who don't have, who have a weird job or have like who are the exception to the rule? I mean, I'm seeing thousands of people. They can't
Well,
all be that.
Well, it's weird because we always think a normal, quote unquote, normal job is like a 9 to 5 job, and that's kind of like what the standard is like through your whole life. Like people that work 9 to 5, it's like that's when you work.
Right.
But then all of a sudden you're like, why is nobody working 9 to 5 anymore? Is it like coming away from that standard? We're not doing 9 to 5 jobs anymore? Or people? I mean, I'm sick of working a 9 to 5 job, and not only am I sick of that time that I work, I'm sick of the place that I work. So it's like a kind of like a double whammy, It's like,
Yeah.
man, I don't want to be here at this time, and I don't want to do this, and it's like, ugh.
Yeah. I guess I'm still living in the illusion that most people have that I don't know, routine of normalcy or whatever that we were conditioned to believe is normal.
Yeah, that's what it is. But you're conditioned to believe that. I mean, and you work a job where you're typically, like you said, your days off are in the week, so that's like your norm. So at this point, you're probably like, man, I wish I could have every weekend off. And I'm like, you know what? Sometimes I wish I had a day off during the week so I could get stuff done because nothing's open when I'm not working. Okay, the post office is open for 2 hours on Saturday. Gee, thanks.
Right.
My bank's open for 2 hours on Saturday. Gee, thanks.
Yeah.
Like, give me a break.
Banking hours are the absolute worst on earth.
Yep, they're terrible. And like the one bank branch I go to in Clifton Park, it's like their normal day is like 9 to 4, and then on Friday they're open an extra hour. So they're open 9 to 5 on Friday just in case. It's like, well, guess what? I still don't get out of work at 5 o'clock. Well, I do now, but I used to not get out until 5:15. It's like, what the hell does that help me? But
mine does something stupid like 9 to 3:30, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then like Thursday, Friday it's like 9 to 4, and then Saturday they close at noon.
Yeah. See, that'd be actually kind of cool working that job. You go in at 9, but you get out at 3:30 in the afternoon. Like that's a cool early day. I like that. Having that extra couple hours. After you get out of work before it's time to go to bed and go work again. But
I don't know. Is that even like a 40-hour week though? I mean, what are they? I don't know.
Well, if you take out a half an hour for lunch, that's 6 hours. So that's what 24 hours in 4 days plus 7 hours. That's like a 32-hour week.
Yeah, just barely full time according to the labor laws or whatever.
Yep.
Oh. Well, if I had originally was going to work 8 hours today, and that would have put me right at 32 as well. But because nobody wants to fucking eat out on 4th of July, which you know, who expected that? I'm shocked that nobody's going to be coming into the restaurant. So they pushed me back to 5. So I'll still probably have to give them $40 for rent.
No, that's not bad. Hey, that's not bad. $40 a week. I mean, if you can do it every week, that's like what, $160 a month. Pretty good.
Well, yeah, I wish I could just go in there and just work my rent off or whatever. But
well, is that why is that kind of like a discount you're getting because your landlord is also your boss at work? Like, is he just like, you know, yeah, I don't understand. Is it just really cheap, or is he giving you like kind of a break?
No, I mean for this area, it's pretty standard. For what I've got anyway. I mean, I'm able to go in and work hours or whatever because he's my boss too. But I don't know, like it's still I don't know, I guess like any other rent arrangement or whatever, like you just have to set that shit aside and budget that or whatever. It just sucks. Like I know I'm basically complaining about paying rent, which nobody wants to pay rent. Obviously, nobody wants to pay anything. But it just sucks because like I don't make enough to pay rent, and I've missed a couple of months here and there, and I've gotten that to slide because he's my boss as well, and I can just make it up later or whatever. But yeah, I'm still, even though I make more money now than I did working at the original restaurant, whatever. Like it's nowhere close to a living wage is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So, I'm making on average, still only around 12 to 1400 a month, which isn't great at all. And so, a third of that has to go to rent.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, you just can't ever catch up. You certainly can't get ahead.
No. So
especially when this is not the first time I've had to deal with like a 20-something hour work week at the new place. And they just sprang this whole like, oh, we're closed for the weekend on us yesterday. So like everybody had to like scramble to change their plans around or whatever. And I had to scramble to try to convince somebody to let me work for them at the other place.
Please let me work. Please. That's kind of weird, like you have to beg for work, it's like, sometimes there's too much work and then sometimes you gotta beg for it. But.
Yeah, they set it up like that. That's how they're like, oh yeah, if you ever need hours, just come by and ask somebody if you can have their shift. I'm sure they'll let you. And it's like, well, why should I have to do that,
Yeah.
Like, that's just one other aspect of, the weird, bizarre, unique job that isn't the norm, in my opinion, to have to deal with. Like, can you imagine if you had to go to State Farm and be like, hey, can I work today?
Yeah, I know, right? Well, I think that's, it's always like there's a good and bad, like you're working for a guy that's just a guy, that's what it is. He's not like some big corporate entity.
Right.
And it's like you kind of have to play by his rules. But like I work for a big, company that's in a business that's very highly regulated by state, and like, not only that, they're very visible and they have to, conform to like labor laws and like federal employment, laws and stuff like that. So it's like I'm hired to work this many hours, and that's the hours I'm going to work. And I always know that I'm going to get this amount of money in my paycheck unless I work overtime.
Right.
And like who knows when they're getting overtime. But I mean, I've been basically working overtime for the last couple of months. I got to get it while I can get it. But yeah, that's like the weird thing. Like, if you had a job like that, you would have guaranteed hours, but then you would be dealing with like your normal, like, the stereotypical corporate bullshit that you deal with working for a big company. It's like, like that, not having that face-to-face interaction all the time and feeling like, you're not appreciated or cared sometimes. I'm not saying it's like that all the time, but, I've gone through, spurts like that at my job. So like you kind of like trade, like you're kind of like, at a job where it's like, oh yeah, I can get some hours in, or, it's like not set in stone, but I'm set in stone, but it's not as lax, the way yours is. So I mean, it could be a good thing or a bad thing. You just, so it depends on how you look at it, I guess. But
well, I'm kind of my own worst enemy when it comes to that. So I guess I sort of need a not lax environment just because like I get too used to it
Yeah.
I'm not my own best disciplinarian, so it's like, you know, in the past, I would have probably just been like, oh, you know what? This week I just had Wednesday and Thursday off. I worked fucking 4 hours yesterday, and I got 2 more days off. Fuck yeah! But I can't have four and a
Yeah.
half days off a week.
Yeah, that's a little bit. Yeah, like I'm kind of like that's cool, but not when it comes to like having to live.
Yeah, all of a sudden the bills are due. Like, wait a minute, why don't I have any money?
Like wait a minute. Oh, that's
Oh,
right. I only worked 3 days last week. Sorry.
my fucking employers don't pay holiday pay or don't give a fuck if they decide to close their business that you depend on to be open for your
Yep.
wage. There's no safety net, so it's fucking. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like almost like a professional wrestler or something. Like they're considered an independent contractor, and it's like, yeah, you're fucking responsible for your own shit. So fuck you. We'll just provide the stage to do it on.
Yeah, and yeah. See, that's kind of it's weird because I kind of feel like you've dealt with that a lot, but I think a lot of that is working in Portland too. I mean, I kind of feel like that place when it comes to like a business like that, like they just don't give a crap. And
Right.
it's like they string you along and they do all the stuff they're not supposed to do and they don't give a shit. It's like that's dumb. Like I couldn't imagine it, and I kind of feel like it's just where you are.
Yeah.
Kind of. I mean, I know that you've had like your woes in other places where you've gone, but it's not really like the same thing though. I mean, here
Yeah.
it's like you worked for that printing company and you worked for this restaurant, and you worked for that restaurant, and you don't, what I mean? And they're just kind of like, oh well, we don't give a
Well, it's true because
shit.
they're all independent local businesses that are, kind of. It's like the Wild West. They're allowed to do whatever the fuck they want, and
Yeah,
because
basically.
New York's an at-will employment state too, so like that's another chip stacked against me in their favor.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
What's that exactly mean? Like at will? Does that mean they can just let you go for whatever reason whenever they want?
Yeah, they can literally just fucking pretty much make something up, and you have no recourse.
Yeah.
The only thing that sort of shifts the balance back a little towards me in that scenario is because they're an independent business, they don't fire anybody unless they absolutely have to because they don't want to deal with unemployment.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, that's right. Because if you fire them, you're the one that's paying the unemployment. So it's
right.
like, huh. Yeah, I've seen that too. Like they really have to. I mean, where I work too, I've seen people get fired, but I mean, they really have to build like a solid case for it, so that one. But I mean, with a company like me with like thousands and thousands of employees, they'll pay for unemployment, so they'll fire you. But they're more along the lines of covering their backs for not having like a wrongful termination lawsuit. Like they've got to really build a case against you and investigate and have proof of why they're firing you before they do it.
Right.
And I've seen people get fired for not living up to their production standards, depending on what they were doing. But
Right.
they'll have documented counseling 2 or 3 times before they even go to that route, where like the employee has like signed a statement saying that yes, I was counseled about this, and here's my action plan to get better. And then if it doesn't, then you say, well, he signed this paper, we had this conversation, we had that conversation, he's not doing it, we're firing him. You have nothing to go against because you were told already,
Right.
before you got fired. And I've seen people get fired for like inappropriate conversations and stuff in email, which is simple because you have an electronic copy of it.
Yeah.
But stuff like that. So it's really like, I mean, they'll cover their bases before they fire you. But yeah, I can see that. Like your shady independent businesses don't want to pay unemployment, so they put up with a lot of crap too, probably.
Right.
So who knows, man?
Okay.
Employment's such a weird thing.
Yeah. I only had one real experience dealing with that kind of thing. I got fired once in my life at a nursing home, and it was yeah, it was something that I didn't have my own record of or whatever. So I was basically like completely screwed. I filled out a time request sheet for I had like 8 vacation days built up. So I took a trip to Pennsylvania on Thanksgiving of that year and used like 6 of them, and submitted it, but for some reason I didn't even stop to think. Like I only got a verbal approval. So then the last day comes and I get this phone call, like, where are you, blah, blah, you're supposed to be at work and all this stuff. I'm like, no, no, that's tomorrow. Today's the last day of my, the time I took off. And, oh, no, it's not bullshit. That's whatever, like, you're supposed to be back today. I'm like, no, read it again. And then basically it was like, well, if you don't come in today, you don't have a job. So I'm like, what? So I got on the fucking train, came all the way back, and by the time I got back, I was fired, and the guy wasn't taking my calls anymore. And so I had to deal with HR, and they fucking formed like an iron curtain of collusion against
Yep.
you.
Yep.
And so I said, all right, well, I want to see the time off sheet that I submitted. So they gave me a photocopy of it. And on the photocopy, all he did was go in, circle the last day, the day in question, and write not approved above it, and then gave it to them.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, but fuck it, I got unemployment, and I got more through unemployment per week than I was making there, so sucks for them.
Yeah, it's their fault too.
Yeah, totally.
But see, that's what it is, and like, it's funny that you say that ironclad wall of collusion. In my experiences with work too, like you look at HR, and they're supposed to be like making sure.
Yeah, they're the police.
Well, yeah, they're like the police. They got to make sure that like people are not being inappropriate, that people aren't being treated unfairly. And like in my experience, like HR is only on the side of management. Like there's no which way about it. Like you can go to HR with anything, and they'll be like, it's kind of like one of those things. It's almost like military. Like it's like, did you go to your manager first? No, we'll go to your manager first, then come to us. And then when you go to your manager about it, your manager goes to HR, and they're like, yeah, watch out for this guy because he just called me a sack of shit. Exactly. And you know what I mean? Like that's really it's what it comes down to. HR. I'm like scared to death of HR. If anybody says HR, I'm like fucking run because they're not on your side. Like they act like they're going to be on your side and they're supposed to be, but they're not.
Right.
I think we talked about The Office before about how that's like one of our favorite shows and stuff, and the HR guy on that, Toby or whatever. It's funny because that I think is the only inaccurate depiction of office life. Right. Is the relationship between Michael and Toby because Michael's the manager, he hates HR, and Toby's kind of like got everybody's back against the bad boss kind of thing. Right. But like in reality, it's like the opposite. It's like management, HR are like, hey, we're like bed buddies here. We're gonna like screw anybody that tries to say something's not fair or whatever. Exactly. It's absolute bullshit. Like I can't get over it sometimes. But yeah, I mean, fortunately, knock on wood, I've never been in the position of being in trouble, really, so I don't have to deal with it. But it's so unfair sometimes, man, I tell you.
Well, also on the topic of employment, and I guess specifically more relating to my line of work, I don't know if you've heard about the possible approval in New York State for raising the fast food wage to $15 an hour.
Yeah.
I guess they meet on the 13th to like actually decide it, but I mean, all signs seem to be pointing to go from what I'm reading.
I don't know. I got mixed feelings about that, and I'm not really like, it's not really like a black or white issue for me,
It's a pretty complex issue.
It's weird because you think about it, like, yeah, great, $15 an hour is a livable wage. Most people that work in fast food don't work 40 hours a week. They work like weird shifts and maybe get like 20 to 30. But at the same time, though, I'm kind of like, is fast food work really worth $15 an hour? I mean, that's like, I don't really want to talk. I mean, that's not really that much lower than what I make an hour for working at a company for like 7 years. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of like, really? And I've always kind of had the feeling that, fast food is kind of like one of those places where it's like teenagers go to work to get some job experience. They work like weird. Like I said, they don't work a full 40-hour week. So it's like, is it worth $15 an hour? I don't. I mean, everybody out there like, yeah, give them all that money. They're like, that's well and good, but like, what are you paying these people for? I mean, is it, like, what do you think about it? I mean, I'm not against it at all.
Number one, I'm thinking I'm definitely gonna fucking apply for a part-time job, a second job, to supplement my current income, which we've covered as being woefully under what it needs to be. And I'm hoping if I get in there before it's approved, I'll beat the rush and I won't be denied. But yeah, I think it's. I think that's kind of the old traditional way of looking at a job like a fast food job. Kind of like we talked about how like the what's considered normal is still the 9 to 5 thing, the illusion of
Yeah.
normalcy or whatever. I think that a lot of people now uh, kind of are like I think now we have more adults who are working fast food jobs as their like main job
Yeah.
for whatever reason. I mean, it's a shit economy. And the fast food is a lot like the place that I work at, where they cast a super wide net with who they hire. They just throw it out there, say yes to everybody, and fucking sort it out later.
Mhm.
So it's not traditionally very hard to get a fast food job. So I think, a lot of people, that's kind of like their last line of defense between, staying employed and true poverty. So like, all right, well, I can just fucking get a fast food job. So I get it. Like, I don't think the real issue is that too much to pay a fast food worker. I think the real issue is why isn't everybody making more? Like
Yeah.
what? Like I don't know. I mean, 15, I think, is the magic number because it's basically the minimum that's considered livable based on the math. But
Yeah.
honestly, that's really not even like that's a livable wage, but it's not a comfortably livable wage even
No,
anymore.
it's not. It's basically enough to cover what you need to cover and maybe
Right.
have like $50 left over. And I mean, it's what are you basing it on 40 hours a week, or are you basing it on like 20 to 30 hours a week that a normal fast food employee would work? I mean, I think the better route to go here is like you said, instead of raising the fast food minimum wage to like 15, I think they should just raise the minimum wage across the board to like 12 or 13 an hour. You know what I mean? And then if you work at a place like that for, a long time, then you start getting like, okay, give them $1 extra an hour,
Yeah.
like after a year. Like, I think that's more feasible and just give them a few more hours at 12 to 13 an hour, because like, what's our federal minimum wage is what? Like something paltry. It's like $9 or $10 an hour. I mean, you look at the minimum wage across like every country in the world that's not ours. I mean, it's significantly higher, whatever it happens to be.
It's still 8.75.
8.75 is the federal minimum wage. Like that's ridiculous. Like it should be like at least $12.
Yeah.
You know, I mean that's fine. And like you said, and you're right. I mean, I guess like my view of like the fast food industry is kind of more of a traditional view. And you're right. There's a lot. I do see a lot of like adult people working there, and they're not just management either. They're like running the cashier at McDonald's or something. Like
Yeah.
it's not my place to judge why you're there. And if you're there and that's the job you want, then it's fine. And if you're at the end of your road and you just had to take a job to maintain yourself not being poor or whatever, that's fine. Whatever you do a job, you do a job. It's just a job. But yeah, I just kind of feel like it's kind of weird to say, okay, well, if you work in fast food, you get $15 an hour. Like everybody's gonna jump to fast food all of a sudden because they're working in like a doctor's office or something making $12 an hour. They're gonna be like, screw this, I'm gonna go to work at Burger King because I'm gonna get $15 an hour.
Right.
So whatever. But I think that might be a little bit stretching it for $15 an hour.
Yeah.
And my job at State Farm when I started was $11.91 an hour.
Right.
Which was like that's I mean, it was way higher than minimum wage. Like I was saying, like 11.91 was higher than minimum wage, and it was fine for me being a single guy that had a roommate. We shared the rent stuff, and it was perfectly fine. But yeah, it's really weird. 15 an hour. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I guess what I'm hoping and what seems logical after in the immediate after effects, if this does go through, and like places like Seattle have already changed their minimum wage across the board to $15 an hour. So I don't know. I guess like I could see this ending up as the fast food industry because they're the ones that they've been leading the charge on this. They've been the ones out there consistently striking and picketing and stuff, and like, more power to them. Like, my hat's off because I haven't been putting my fucking money where my mouth is up here.
Yeah.
But if they end up, I think it's going to end up where they're just going to be the specific group who sort of like poked the hole so everybody can flood through, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I think it would be better if you talk about like Walmart workers not getting paid enough and like raise their minimum wage, because I think they're just kind of in the same boat. I mean, you look at the the fortune that the Waltons own
Right.
and like what they pay their employers, it is absolutely like one of the biggest social tragedy or travesties I've ever heard of in my entire life. I mean, I was reading some ridiculous thing where like they could buy like with their fortune that with the money they make bringing in profit, like they could buy a $250,000 home like every hour or something like
Right.
that. I mean, it's insane. And like these people are in the same position. They're like making $8 or $9 an hour. And see, the thing is, Walmart, I feel like, is a place where they work longer than they would in a fast food restaurant. Because I feel like when you say minimum wage jobs, or what you'd consider to be a minimum wage job, you don't work a 40-hour week at any of these places. You know what I mean? Like I said, a lot of times it's a high school kid that goes to work a couple hours after school or works on the weekend. You know what I mean? So I guess raising minimum wage to $15 an hour isn't a bad thing because you're technically not working a 40-hour week.
Right.
But I kind of feel like places like Walmart, I kind of feel like that's more along the lines of it's closer to a normal job than like the fast food job is. You know what I mean? So I think it's great for fast food. My hat's off to them as well, but I think you need to kind of start doing this across the board to all these other, multi-billion-dollar companies that are screwing their employees over with shitty pay and like shitty working conditions, like Walmart.
Right. When I was there, when I worked at Walmart, they very strictly kept you between 32 and 35 hours a week, and if you even came close to overtime, like let's say you're in the middle of a shift, and by the end of that shift you're gonna have 41 hours. Like partway through the shift, they'd make you fucking punch out. And it's like, okay, well if I'm punching out, I'm leaving.
Yeah, I know. Like I'm not gonna work off the clock. You're stupid. That's illegal.
But they try to do that all the time there.
Yeah.
But I think Walmart specifically, I'm pretty sure I remember reading that they raised their minimum wage across the board to $10 an hour.
Yeah, it's like $10 to start, and then like after a year, it's going to be like 11 or 12 or something like that. I heard it was like they're going to incrementally bring it up, which I think is good, but it's still
good, but it's still a fucking drop in the bucket for Christ's sake.
Yeah, I know. It's like those guys are like, what can I do with my? Well, they can basically like wake up every day and be like, man, I want to spend $1 billion today. Like, how could I do that? Oh, let's go buy a private jet and then 3 condos in Malibu. You know what I mean? And just go through all this crap. And then you go to your store and you look at how miserable the people that work there, And I go in there and I kind of feel like people that work at Walmart have an attitude problem, but like I don't blame them. You know what I mean? Like they work a crappy job, and whatever.
Yeah, going to Walmart is a nightmare. I mean, it always has been, but like I don't know, in the age of everything's a supercenter now, it's so much worse. Yeah. Because it's like 24 hours a day. They're fucking like stocking, everything. Like they've got giant pallets of shit in the middle of the aisles. Pretty much any time you walk in there, like they're always like running giant loads back and forth, and it's just like, you never know if you're gonna get run over, and it's super loud and annoying, and I don't know. I'm convinced that, the bigger store just gives them. More room to stock less of more things.
Right.
So it's like just as frustrating, if not more so. Like I remember in the regular old Walmart, like the normal version before supercenters took over the world.
Yeah.
I don't know. They seemed like they had a lot more. I don't know. Maybe I don't know if it was selection, but a lot more likelihood that you were going to find what you were looking for. And a lot of times you go in there looking for something, like if it's been out, like last time you went in, it was missing from the shelf. This time it's missing. It'll stay missing for like 2 weeks. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's pretty stupid. And on that note too, I feel like you're a huge store. Like you should be stocking like in off hours.
Right.
Between like 11 and 6 in the morning. You should hire overnight stockers. I see like tons of other companies. Like if I'm looking for a job, like on like Indeed or something, they're like, oh, this company's hiring for overnight shelvers and stockers and warehouse workers, and it's like, oh, that makes sense because you would stock your shit and not look like a piece of crap store when you don't have any customers in it. Not at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday when it's already busy anyway.
Exactly.
You've got a pallet of food out here trying to stock food.
Right.
Or whatever it is. It's like, dude, like this is so like unprofessional. You know, like that's the whole.
It is.
And that's the other thing too, like professionalism and what you're supposed to. The product you put out isn't just like your prices; it's like how your store looks, like how your workers behave, and stuff like that. It's just like it's like gives you a bad impression,
Yeah, professionalism doesn't exist in the types of jobs that we're talking about.
Yeah, no, it's terrible because I think if it did exist, it would be better places to work and people would be happier, and they'd probably work more for what they make. But I mean, you're making shit money, like you're not going to work hard.
Right.
You don't have any incentive to work hard. So
it's true.
Whatevs, people. See, like me, like right now they're offering overtime all the time. So I'm like, when I go to overtime, I'll work my butt off because I have incentive to work.
Right.
Because I'm going to be paid like a lot of extra money from this. But
right.
Just an example. And of course, I work in an office too, so it's very hard to be unprofessional in the office.
Right.
But you know what's weird? I'll tell you this: like before I started there, they will. I hope no one listens to this and fires me. Actually, I kind of hope they do listen to it and fire me. Fuck you guys. But when I first started working there, whoa, sorry, I almost knocked over my lamp. Woo, you can cut that part out later. I just scared the crap out of myself. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna burn the house down. Yeah, but it's a lamp. Anyway, I started working there, and just right before I started working, their dress code was like if you were. I mean, I'm just going by the guy's dress code. I'm not really sure what the woman's was. But you had to wear khaki pants, and you had to have at least a collared shirt on. When I started, and on Fridays you could wear jeans, like it was casual Friday. When I started there, they said they just relaxed the dress code to say you could wear jeans every day of the week if you wanted to, but it was like one of those instances where they talk about, quote unquote, dress for the day. It's like if like a vice president or someone's going to be in the office that day, you should probably try to dress a little more professionally, or something like that, which is stupid because it's like, yeah, dress like a slob, but then when the big bosses come, look really nice for them. It's like, why would you want me to like change who I am?
Right.
But anyway, just recently, I guess because in Florida, the Florida offices, because it's so hot in Florida, they can wear shorts to work. Someone else caught wind of this and it threw a big deal about it, and now every office across the country you can wear shorts to work now.
Really?
And I'm like, yeah, it's cool, but at the same time, I'm like, how much more are you going to relax this dress code? In a year, you're going to be like, you know what, just wear whatever you wore to bed into work. Right. We don't care. And most of the time, we don't see customers face to face because we're like an operations center. We don't have customers coming into the building to like do business or anything like that. We're like a claim office. It's like administrative services, stuff like that.
Right.
And it's like we don't have people come in to see us, I guess, so it's not a big deal. But at the same time, it's like when you start relaxing the dress code, I mean, people start seeing that as, oh, well, no one gives a shit around here anymore. I can wear fucking shorts if I want to. And it's like that just befuddles me that I am allowed to wear shorts to an office environment, and I don't get it. But I think that's where like, professional, kind of how you dress kind of goes into professionalism too, which is kind of weird because like I've never really been like a big guy on, like fashion so much. I mean, I know there were points in our life where we're like, yeah, let's be fashionable guys. With like fedoras or whatever we thought was cool. But you know what I mean? Like I've never been really paid a bunch of attention to it, I guess. But now I'm like, man, like where does it stop if we can wear shorts and flip flops to work now? Like if you're gonna start, people are gonna start wearing tank tops.
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous. I mean, I wore shorts to work yesterday because it was overtime and it was it was a holiday for the office. Like I've done that before. Like if I worked a Saturday and I was just doing overtime, I'd wear like fuzzy pajama pants in if I wanted to because I'm not technically in the capacity of a normal working hour, But right. It's so weird, and I thought like, man, like where does it end? But
well,
I
think that on much to the same point that in my experience, especially working in like the kind of restaurants I work in now, independent and whatever, like there is no, I don't know, not even all of them give you like a shirt with the business logo on it, like
yeah.
Early on there were like kitchen staff t-shirts or whatever, but like those kind of went by the wayside. So I think, having some sort of like minimal professional standards of dressing is the only thing that has gotten me any modicum of respect or whatever, like this perceived image of respect and like The ability to move up at all, I really attribute it down to, well, a couple things. One, just being nice to everybody no matter what.
Yeah.
I became known as the only cook in the kitchen who's not a dick. And
That's a good label.
Well, especially like when like employees want to eat, everybody else like flips the fuck out because like, oh, they work here, they know like how busy it's been, how dare they ask us to make them food on top of everything and blah blah blah. But I'm always like super happy to, because it's the only time I really get to cook for real. Like I get to make something a little different, or take like somebody's preferences into account and like see the result. Like I'm never gonna talk to any of the customers and find out what they thought of anything I did, but at least with the employees, I'll be like, how was it? What did you dislike? What did you like? Whatever. So there's that, and being accommodating, and then I guess being skilled to a certain degree. But I really think it comes down to how I look, because everybody else, they just let you show up in whatever, like you're talking about, pretty much whatever you fucking roll out of bed in. Like they don't even make you wear non-slip shoes at these places, which is every food service place I've worked at prior. That's like the one like mandatory thing, because that's a liability thing. Like if you fall on your ass, it's not only like are you fucked, but like they're fucked too, or they can be fucked.
Yeah.
So I'm always the only guy in non-slip shoes. I got my own apron that I bring in. I always have my hair completely covered and whatever. I always wear black. Like that's the color of their shirt anyway. But like I don't know. It's like I look different than everybody else. So I think that's kind of saved me, and that really kind of illustrates the importance of maintaining a certain standard with how you dress for work. I don't know.
Yeah.
It helps with my mindset too, I think. Like, I don't. Part of I think my depression when I was a screen printer was like, literally like you not only could you, but you pretty much had to wear just whatever rags like you could, because you were gonna get them covered in shit by the end of the day anyway.
Yeah.
But I like the feeling of wearing a specific, I don't know, set of clothes or whatever, because it's like okay, I'm suiting up, like it just gets you in the frame of mind kind of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's weird because I kind of do that now. Like even though I do wear jeans to work, I still wear a collared shirt no matter what. So like I have a set aside, like 5 or 6 polo shirts that I wear to work. And like that's what I wear to work. Like I don't really wear them around. I mean, I do sometimes depending on where I'm going. Like if we're going out to dinner or something, I might wear a polo shirt depending on where we're going. But yeah, you're right. It gives you the sense that you're, like you said, you're suiting up. You're going to do your job. Like you got to get in that mindset.
Right.
And it's funny because when I worked at Barnes and Noble, like their dress code was more strict than it is at in my office, which is weird. But along the lines of what I was saying before, you deal with customers and stuff in a job like that. But yeah, when I was the cafe manager, our cafe uniform was everybody had to wear black pants and they had to wear a black shirt. And if it's like if you're a guy, it had to be a black collared shirt. If with women, like their dress, to fit in with the dress code doesn't typically have to have a collar on it. It depends on what it is, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, that was like the uniform. And like if you worked on the book floor, like you had to wear khakis and you had to wear a collared shirt. The only time you could wear jeans and a t-shirt to work was if you were working in receiving in the back. Because 1, you're lifting boxes all day, so like you want to be comfortable. 2, no one sees you because you're working in the back. Like you might come out to go to lunch or something, but like they don't typically see you minute by minute. And I get that. I think it kind of should be the same way. Like if you're in the office part of the job, you should be wearing khakis and whatever. If you're working in like maintenance, you should be they wear a uniform too. Like they have like it's like a maroon polo shirt and like these blue like work pants.
Right.
Like they actually have a uniform. Like the maintenance guys have more of a uniform than the office people do. It's really weird. I don't understand it. It's but whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. Jobs are strange.
Yeah, it's one of those strange things that we have to do to live.
Yeah, and endlessly resent for that very reason.
Yep, exactly.
But in the spirit of the holiday and all the pros and cons patriotism brings.
Yay.
What do you think about the issue with the Confederate flag?
it's weird because all right, let me give you my personal experience and my personal view on this. As you know, when I graduated high school, I went to the Navy and I went to boot camp for the first few months. My school that I did before the hands-on training part of my school, so basically like the classroom portion of my school that I had to go to was in Charleston, South Carolina, and I really, really liked Charleston, South Carolina. I thought it was very, I guess the word charming, you would use to say,
Right.
to describe it. I really liked, the food, the people were really nice. There was a lot of there was a lot of historical things that happened in Charleston. I mean, you're talking all the way back to like the Revolutionary War, you know, and things like that. But of course, there's that dark side of our past that we tend to forget about or not talk about enough. And one of the weird things I always thought about South Carolina was the fact they used the Confederate flag as their state flag, or that it was prominently displayed down there. And I mean, you're talking about like 18-year-old me, not 34-year-old me. So I'm still kind of like forming my opinions about the world and life and stuff. But my first opinion was like, I saw that and I was like, wow, they're using the Confederate flag. Like, you lost, get over it. That was like my sentiment about the Confederate flag. Like, why are you still like parading this thing around? Like you lost the war and you guys were pro-slavery and all this stuff. Like, this is stupid. Never really thought too much about it because I didn't really know at the time in my life that there was such deep-seated racism and hatred still in people in our country. And I think that it's about time they got rid of it, to be honest with you. And I'm kind of glad that there's a movement for it, and I'm getting sick of people talking about how it's not about hate, it's about heritage, and that's not really that's not very accurate to say that in defense of keeping the flag. So I guess my overall opinion is that like I'm kind of glad they're getting rid of it.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not against people's right of free speech, and displaying that flag is I guess you could consider part of free speech. And if you want to, and you have some kind of misguided delusion that you're representing something that's not hateful, that it's all about heritage, then that's fine. But you are also cannot complain about getting ridiculed for it either. You know what I mean? And that's part of my free speech. So, that's fine. More power to you. But I kind of think that like people going and like desecrating like monuments to like Confederate soldiers isn't really the right thing to do. Because I mean, I heard after that they started like vandalizing things. Depends on what it is, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I mean, you can look at it case by case. But yeah, I think the Confederate flag has run its course, and I'm getting sick of seeing it, and I think it's stupid.
So I don't know. My feelings on it are mostly the same. Look, I think like with everything else, I think an extreme reaction is the least advisable course of action to take.
Well, of course.
I think most of the points being made are relevant and factual. It's absolutely time to not have it on state buildings and things like that. Like it's definitely time to remove it from, I don't know, I guess like when a government organization or whatever is using it, that sort of legitimizes it. And I think it's time to certainly remove its legitimacy, and view it as like something from a bygone era. But I also don't think that rushing to try to expunge it from existence is good at all either. Like I just what it comes from is like I saw this story about there's a golfer. His name escapes me. I think it's Bubba something.
Yeah, Bubba Watson.
Yeah. So
because you're talking about he has the General Lee car from Dukes of Hazzard, right?
Right.
Is that what you're talking about?
Right. It's got the flag on top.
Yeah.
And he's like, the big story is he announced that he's going to have it painted over.
So, all right then.
So fair enough, but like, I guess that's your own personal thing. But like, should everybody who has a replica of that car fucking not be allowed to have that on there? Like, should
Yeah.
every version of that car, like every toy, every model that's ever been made, be recalled? And are they going to go into the episodes and digitally remove each one out? Like, I don't know. I mean, there's got to be a compromise here.
Yeah.
It's certainly true that like racism and bigotry and hatred and blah 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 are a part of that flag's legacy. But let's be honest, it's part of the American flag's legacy.
Yeah.
It's I don't. I just think it's silly to try to like blame it all on the Confederate flag. Um, I do agree that like that flag in particular has been sort of taken over as a symbol for that by idiots. So like they spoiled it for everybody who wanted to use it. And like I said, I think legitimizing it is its time has come to end. Um, but like I don't know, the idea that you can never ever see it again, I don't know. I just think it's too extreme.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I don't like the extreme reactions to everything either. I mean, look what happened with like post 9/11 patriotism. That was an extreme reaction to the
Right.
terrorist attacks, which were they're awful. And I don't want people to ever forget what happened or not not think about it. But I mean, yeah, like I think people going up to fights so they can go kill people is kind of an extreme reaction to it.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. I think I kind of look at it that way too. Like, yeah, the American flag, slavery was legal under the American flag for 100 years.
Right.
But I think my argument to that, I mean, I understand that and I agree with that, but my argument to that is like I think the Confederate flag was specifically made for a government that was one treasonous in trying to secede, and the big reason was because they didn't want to get rid of their slaves. And so that kind of comes as a symbol of okay, it was only the flag of the Confederacy for like 4 or 5 years, and the American flag. But I think the American flag, a lot of people stands for more than just like what the bad things that we've done as a country. I think it stands for other things as well. But you're right. I mean, it's like slavery was legal for 100 years under the American flag,
Right.
but I think because the Confederate flag the fag so was that a Freudian slip on accident? Jeez. But the Confederate flag, it was made specifically for I think it was like the Northern Virginia Cavalry or Regiment or something that they first flew it like in the first Battle of Bull Run in Manassas, Virginia. I think it was under that General Beauregard or something like that. So that was a flag specifically for secession, whatever. But then the American flag, like we were technically seceding from Britain at that time too. So there's weird parallels to both the
Right.
flags. Like they kind of stand for the same thing, but they kind of don't.
Right.
And of course with the guy that killed those people in the church, that was one of his symbols. And, like they said, he wore like the flags of like apartheid South Africa too, like, so
Right.
he used it as a racist symbol.
For sure.
And a lot of people do. And a lot of people don't. And I think a lot of people that don't are just kind of oblivious to it, and I think they don't make a big deal about it. So I think you're right. The extreme reaction to be, oh, you can't ever see this flag again. It's like, well, I mean, that's kind of nuts. But because people are going to have them and people are going to fly. I mean, people are going to be like, yeah, my great great grandpappy fought for the South and he died for what he believed in and that's what it means to me. And it's like, well, I mean, did he believe in slavery or was he just fighting for his country? I mean, there's a whole lot of different, there's a lot of layers to this, and I guess the more you peel back, the more it stinks, but like an onion.
Well, I just.
But I'll tell you, yeah, go ahead.
I'm just gonna say, like, that's why I say, like, the associations it has with all those horrible things is definitely cause and enough justification to delegitimize it as like an official, state symbol or state usage or whatever.
Yeah.
And like it absolutely should be firmly moved from an active, symbol or whatever to something that is like part of history. So
right.
I absolutely support that, but I just think encouraging people to freak the fuck out and try to like erase it from existence is the wrong thing to do. I don't know. I guess I'm a moderate human being in general, so.
Yeah, well, and think about it too. After they decided to get rid of it, like look at all of, like the pro-Confederate flag rallies they had after that. So it's like
It's just
your extreme
encouraging it.
reaction. Yeah, it's like your extreme reaction breeds the extreme reaction on the other side too. They're like,
Right.
no, don't take it away. Let's parade this shit around. It's like. Everybody's freaking out. You know what I mean? It's like that's what you're kind of saying. Like all of a sudden, people just start freaking out. And it's like, yeah, that stuff was horrible, but like, let's chill out for a minute. Right? Let's just. You're right. A state-sponsored flag is stupid. Like, and all those states should redo their flags, like they should.
Yep.
And a lot of people are like, yeah, these flags belong in a museum because it is a part of our history. Albeit a dark part of our history, it's still part of our history. You should be able to go to a museum and say, this is the flag the Confederates flew when they tried to secede from the Union. You know what I mean? Like, I get that. But yeah, you're right. I think the extreme reaction in everything that you do is not the best course of action because typically your emotions are high and that's where the extreme reaction comes from. But as cooler heads prevail, you start seeing that there's more sides to this. And I was even reading articles online. There were black people that supported the Confederate flag for whatever reason.
Right.
I didn't really read into it because I kind of felt like they would be delusional at that point. But it's not like it's just like a white thing either. It's mostly a white thing. White supremacy and whatnot. But yeah, on a more personal note, I was actually pretty. As much of a tragedy as it was, like it did hit a little bit close to home because I remember that the Emmanuel AME Church or whatever it's called. I remember seeing that quite often in my time that I spent down there. A lot of my free time I spent in downtown Charleston. Just like walking around and looking at the place and seeing all the history and going to all the great places to eat, stuff like that. And I remember walking past that church like so many times on that corner. And at that point, I'm like, man, are we just not safe in church from anybody anymore? Like, God, you can't like send your kid to school. You can't go to church. It's like, where are we safe?
Right.
But
that's true.
Yeah, it was just really weird. I could not believe that happened. I was like, wow. Like, I remember that place. Like, I really like Charleston for other things than its shady history.
Right.
But it really was. I love that place. Like, great food. Like, oh man, just nuts. Just crazy. So that's my opinion. And I'm sticking to it.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe there's some compromise everybody can reach where, like, if you have a replica of the General Lee, you just take the stars off it or something. Just this blue X on a red square or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, why would anybody want to copy? Or even like the name of the car itself is stupid. So.
Right. Well, that's where it ties into the whole theme there.
It's the General Lee with a Confederate flag. Like, it's just totally Southern. But it's all about heritage, so don't worry about it.
Like, it's just, I don't know, I see that. I guess maybe part of my thing with that is, like, the nostalgia of it. The Dukes of Hazzard is basically a live-action cartoon,
Yeah.
And I don't equate that with any kind of, like, hatred or racism or whatever. And, fair enough if that's, it's undeniably part of the legacy of that flag and that symbol. But, I don't think you should, if you own that car, I don't think you should have to fucking scrub it off the top of it. I don't know. I think that's silly.
Well, I think the only reason why he's doing it is because he's basically a celebrity.
Right.
And it's like if he's more, he's prolific, more than most people are. And I think a lot of it is because, if they're like, oh, Bubba Watson won't take this flag off his car, is he racist? It's like, it's like he has to,
Plus his name's already Bubba, so.
Yeah, he's got 2 strikes against him already.
You can't be Bubba and have the Confederate flag.
Well, it's funny. A buddy of mine in the Navy, like one of our friends, who's a black guy, his nickname was Bubba. You know what I mean? Right. Like, why did we nickname him Bubba? And that's the thing. I look at it, and like you said, that show was basically a live action cartoon. And it's done all in good fun. And, that's, we gave that guy the nickname Bubba, not because, like, we were racist. It was just the funny thing we called him. You know what I mean? Right. So, that's kind of like the way, you look at a lot of things. You got to look at it in humor. It's like comedians nowadays, too. They get, like, ripped apart for every, insensitive thing they say. And it's like, do you understand what comedy is?
Yeah, exactly.
And I remember, like, the biggest thing recently was Trevor Noah from South Africa, is taking over the Daily Show. He's a comedian, and someone trolled like his Twitter account and found some like somewhat racist, like, anti-Semitic tweets that he made as jokes because he's a comedian,
right.
but I mean, I don't think people really into like, oh, how could he's so insensitive? And it's like I remember Patton Oswalt had this like really long Twitter response to everyone freaking out about it, and he just did some random joke, and he was saying like picking it apart and saying, well, you can't say this part in the joke because it'd be considered sexist and blah blah. You know what I mean? It was a really good response, and I wish I was more prepared. I could have read it off or something like that. But you know, it's just like comedians, like they get like flack for everything. And it's like, dude, do you understand what comedy is? Yeah. You know, like it's not supposed to be serious. It's funny. You know, it's whatever.
Well, it's like everything's reverting back to the 50s or something, where like everybody's a fucking commie, and like, you know, like this is the shit that Lenny Bruce got arrested 8,000 times for fucking, you know, to move past and to break the barriers on. Like, you're really just gonna undo all that?
Yeah, and even like the censorship of Bill Hicks too. You know, that was a huge story in the comedic world as well. You know, how he couldn't do certain jokes on public or on cable television or whatever. You know, like he'd go on the Letterman show, and the Letterman writers made him, you know, change, you know, his jokes around so it was more PC. You know, it's like that was a huge. Yeah, it was ridiculous. You know, someone like Bill Hicks goes over to like, you know, England, and they love him, and over here they like boom. You know, he has like so many hecklers, and you know, it's just ridiculous. Like this like weird puritanical society that we live in. I don't know. Like everyone's gotta be PC.
Well, he's from the South. Like he was, you know, he was one of their own. Like trying to talk some sense into, like, you know, I guess the stereotypical Southern audiences, where like I don't know if it's based on a general impression we as a country have of the South. Or you know, his own comedic spin on the audiences he would like see down there.
Yeah.
But it's like you got one of your own telling you, you know, trying to enlighten you a little bit and shit. Like, still doesn't get you to pay attention at all. So I mean, what hope do the rest of us have?
Yeah. I think a lot of it is just too many people are just ingrained in what they believe, and they don't have an open mind anymore too. It's like, you know, I'm 40. I've always believed this. I'm not changing. You know, people are just stubborn. You know, and that's how you can celebrate your patriotism. Just be stubborn about everything today if you want. You know, like I'm just a stubborn American.
Yeah, like I don't have to because it's my right or whatever. Like, you know, there's a difference. I don't know, between having rights and being an idiot, I guess. Like even idiots have rights, but if you don't actually understand them, then you know you can't just make them up to suit your argument. It's basically the same thing that like zealous Christians do with the Bible. You know, like, oh, like the Bible says, like, you know, a man can't lay with another man or whatever, so I'm against gay anything. But, you know, I'm not going to talk about the part that says if you mix fabrics, you get stoned to death or whatever. If you eat shellfish, you get stoned to death.
Yeah.
Kind of speaking of that, one of my favorite Bill Hicks lines was always, you know, the Christians who would come to his show would have some, like, issue to take with it. And he would always do the impression, you know, the Southern Christian, or somebody comes up to him after the show and was like, hey buddy, I didn't care for what you said, and then he goes, so forgive me.
Exactly.
And that was the end of that.
Well, it was funny because I remember Jim Gaffigan had a really funny line too. It was like, I guess like because his wife's Catholic or whatever, so he said something like, yeah, you know, so it's like, but it's okay. He's like, because I'm Catholic. He's like they were like, yo, don't eat meat on Friday. Unless you forget. But yeah, you know, you're right. I mean, it's really anything. It's like I was saying before, you know, you have a right to say whatever you're an idiot. You know, you're also are going to get ridiculed, and that's my right. You know, and that's kind of part of it. You know, and, you know, it goes into like the whole American exceptionalism too. Like, you know, oh, everything we do is okay, so we do it for the greater good. You know, which is bullshit.
Right.
So.
Well, on that point of politically correctness, everything. You know, it's in the news. I don't know if you have followed it, but how could you really escape it? The shitstorm Jerry Seinfeld's going through right now because he spoke out against politically correctness finally.
Yeah, I don't know what his specific quotes were or whatever, but I'm kind of glad he is, I guess. Yeah. I know actually I watched a couple of his recent episodes of his web show, and he mentioned that I think. He had Steve Harvey on the show, and like Steve Harvey was saying, it's weird because now when he gets called out for something, it's like he has to apologize because he has a talk show, And if he doesn't apologize, like they lose the sponsorship and stuff, and then like that's on him, and it's like a really weird dynamic that he has now with his life. But yeah, they mentioned something about that. What did he specifically say? Do you remember?
He was, I think it was an ESPN interview. So this kind of sparked everything. He even commented on it just because he was kind of frustrated in his own life with, like, I guess the saturation. He said to her something about, like, you're 14 now, and in the next couple of years you're probably more on weekends and stuff, or so you can be around boys, and you're gonna want to start like getting to that age or whatever. And apparently the daughter said that's sexist.
Yeah, I did read that. And it was like, yeah, she doesn't even know what the hell that means.
Right.
Like, she's just saying it because it's a cool thing to say now or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he said that he's, so many comedians talk about how they don't even bother, like, coming to college campuses anymore for that reason. Like, everybody just says, like, that's racist, that's sexist, that's prejudice, that's whatever it is, just to fucking, play the victim, or just to fucking,
yeah.
whatever it is. Like, it's like, I don't know, it's almost, obviously it's not legally the same, or same in terms of danger or whatever, but it's almost akin to me to like the whole shouting fire in a crowded theater thing.
Yeah.
I guess there's social limits to what you can just scream out or whatever, and it's like, why do you get to just label something that could potentially, if not ruin somebody's career, like certainly make them suffer unnecessarily?
Yeah.
Because you fucking think you're a know-it-all and like want to throw around a label or whatever and have like a modicum of power for a couple seconds. Like, I'm all for it if it's legitimately those things, then label it what it is. But like,
yeah,
with stuff like that, I mean, Jesus Christ.
Well, yeah, I don't think saying like a girl might be interested in boys all of a sudden is anything sexist. I mean, I guess it would be if like she was a lesbian and you just assume that she would be interested in boys. You know what I mean? Like, I guess like there's more doing it. But I don't think if you tell someone like, oh, you're probably gonna want to hang out with some boys pretty soon, it's like, of course, because she's becoming an adult and she's becoming, sexually active or whatever, like yeah. It's just sexist. Like, do you not like boys? I mean, it's like. Right. It's like if you said to your son, like, oh, you're probably gonna want to like, start meeting girls and hanging out with girls. I mean, I guess if she was just like, yeah, I mean, obviously you wouldn't say it to your daughter, but I mean, if you said something like explicit, like it might be sexist. I don't know. Who knows? There's so many, like, it depends on everybody's own little sensitivity to everything too. And I think for his daughter to say that, it's just like, what?
Well, I think like, I don't know. I think one of the arguments against it or whatever, like doing things like that, is that you're just assuming the orientation of somebody when you say stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like, okay, so maybe you don't say. Maybe we evolve slowly over time to not say specifically things that are like, tying you into one orientation or another. Maybe like the mom should have said, oh, you're sexually maturing, something generic. But like, yeah. I think that like. We all like can infer what the fuck she means, and of course like this girl's mother isn't trying to like, shame her into being heterosexual or something stupid. Like, it's just ridiculous. I mean, like certain things like that where people like, I get that if you are any one of the 58 different orientations or genders that exist now, and yes, that was snarky.
That's not PC, be careful.
Exactly. I get that you can be offended or annoyed after a while, like constantly hearing it or whatever, but you're still living in a predominantly heterosexual oriented world. And I think, especially now especially recently with gay marriage being legalized nationwide, and like now more than ever there is more acceptance and more understanding of alternative lifestyles. Well, I mean, the fact that I even said alternative is probably offensive. Than there has ever been in history. So, I mean, I think we can relax a little bit. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, along those lines, like, man, I don't even know where to start with the rest of this conversation. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, that's why, because like I don't want to say the wrong thing. Like, I'm all for it. It's fine, but it's just, man, you're right. I mean, what did Bill Maher said something he was on Seinfeld's show, his web show too, and he said at like one point the liberals got so tolerant they like started to tolerate intolerance. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And that's kind of like what's been happening too. But now it's like we're not. It's like they were tolerating too much, but now it's like we're not tolerating anything anymore. You know, and it's like in good ways and in bad ways.
Yep.
You know. So it's really hard to even just like comment on these, and you know, a lot of it's hard too because like we've never, you know, lived and experienced a lot of the things that these people go through. And I say these people, like people that, you know, have had stuff happen to them, regardless of like their color or their sexual orientation or whatever. But, you know what I mean? Like it's really hard to relate when you haven't had to deal with that, you know? I think that goes along with like the whole argument about white privilege. I kind of feel like, you know, that's something that we've experienced ourselves, you know, unfortunately, and it's not necessarily a good thing. You know what I mean? Right. So it's really hard to even really just make the comments and stuff, you know, and try to be tolerant of everybody, you know. But
you can't. Well, that's the thing. That's the whole thing. You can't please everybody. Like,
no.
At some point, like, I mean, the world isn't fucking baby proofed, you know.
Yeah.
It's great, and it's one thing to work towards. More education and more tolerance and making everything better for everybody. But when it starts getting to the point where, you know, that's not good enough anymore, and like literally anything somebody says is offending to somebody, or, you know, like, it's too much. I'm a fat motherfucker. Like, you know, there's all these things about, like, if you say anything about, like, you're fat shaming, or if you say anything about anybody, like, you're whatever shaming, you're slut shaming if a girl like fucks a lot of people or whatever. And it's like, you know, as somebody who's overweight significantly, and have been several times in my life, I own it. Like, I am fat. Like, I almost want to be fat shamed because maybe it'll fucking, you know, inspire me to do something about it.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's a fine line, but I think it's a pretty clear line at the same time between, you know, fat shaming or whatever shaming and like flat out harassment or whatever. Like, if it becomes harassment, that's one thing. Of course that's bad. But like, if you can't say anything about like somebody like weighing too much around somebody who does weigh too much, it's ridiculous. It's not realistic.
Yeah,
I say that as a fat guy.
Well, yeah, we talked about that with Tess Holliday too, being like that first plus size model that was signed for the contract, or size 22, whatever it was. You know, and people were like, "Yay, that's great," you know, and all that kind of stuff. And there were the people that were saying, "What? Like, you're giving people the wrong idea because like being that overweight's unhealthy," you know.
That's
yeah, there's sides to everything. Like, it's never cut and dry, you know. Because are we going to be tolerant because we're not portraying like this like unrealistic image of women in media anymore, or are we going to say that's fine, but at the same time, like, she's probably going to have some serious health problems if she doesn't lose some weight? You know what I mean? Like, that's a universal, that's science, you know, that's going to happen. And it's like, I mean, I'm not saying that like, oh, now we're promoting people, everybody can be fat, it's fine, you know. That's not what we're saying either. So like, there's so many different points to this that it's hard just to say, well, I stand on this point, but that point does kind of make sense. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where I'm at with a lot of these issues. It's like, ugh.
Well, I mean, you know, there's a balance to everything, and there are extremes to everything, and I think just like with every issue we've discussed, whether it's fireworks or the Confederate flag, or, you know, the reactions to the Confederate flag, or, you know, shaming people or whatever, political correctness, it's all fine and dandy if you can just be moderate and sensible, you know, and stay within the bounds of reason and avoid from rushing over to the extreme end of either side of the spectrum. I don't know. Doing that does nobody any good. Ultimately, like, you're fighting for a cause, but you're hurting your cause at the same time when you do that.
Okay, there you have it. That was episode 15 of WAMCast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.